Hello and welcome to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. This week we're going to be looking at another film, and it's quite a long film, but bear with me because I think you'll find it's worth it. The film is a classic that was originally released in 1939 after 3 years of filming and editing, and it runs for almost 4 hours. Of course, we're not going to be taking that amount of time to examine the colour aspects of it, but nevertheless, it's a well worthwhile watching film if you haven't seen it before, because it was quite famous in its day. It gained 8 Oscars and 5 more nominations, including winning an Oscar for Hattie McDaniel, the first Black American actress who ever received an Oscar. It's also one of the first colour films to hit the main screen and be seen internationally, and so it becomes a precursor for colour or hue representation. It was the exemplar that I used for my preliminary PhD study, and it is being classified by some people as the best classic film of all time, whereas others say that the themes and character depictions may be offensive and problematic to contemporary audiences. The white coloured separation that's depicted within the film was common until the 1960s, so it can still be quite triggering, quite offensive to some people. But that's entirely up to you as to whether or not you'd like to watch Gone with the Wind. Before we begin, however, I'd like to sincerely thank all of my subscribers for continuing with me. I notice we've got a new one just recently. Thank you very much for joining the sessions. For those of you who watch without subscriptions, that's okay, you're welcome too. And if you're new to this channel, please feel doubly welcome. Let's get into the film, shall we? Gone with the Wind was set in the 10 years from 1861 to 1871 and traces the life of a fictionalized period that gives a somewhat romanticized and definitely whitewashed version of the South. There are 5 main characters. The one of greatest importance, of course, is Scarlett O'Hara. She is considered to be one of the strongest and most complex female anti-heroes of all time and was played by a relatively newcomer to Hollywood called Vivien Leigh. Her counterpart was played by Clark Gable, a massive icon of his time. He played Rhett Butler, a roguish profiteer and millionaire who wants to marry Scarlett. Scarlett's best friend, Melanie Hamilton, was played by Olivia de Havilland, another great actress of her time, and her role was admired for her kindness and altruism. Ashley Wilkes, played by Leslie Howard, was Scarlett's initial love interest, but he marries Melanie, much to her chagrin. The 5th member of the cast that is of importance is, of course, Mammy. Mammy was played by Hattie McDaniel. She is the body servant or slave to Scarlett. She also plays the part of Scarlett's conscience, as Scarlett doesn't appear to have a great deal of conscience in the film itself. So let's now briefly overview the plot. Because the film lasts for an entire 3.5+ hours, I've looked at only the truncated highlights of the plot. We're not going to examine a great deal of the plot itself, but I would like you to note the colours that are worn by the character Scarlett O'Hara as we progress through the plot elements. Scarlett is a sheltered and manipulative Southern belle. Her father teaches her to love her home, which is called Tara. She's very much lacking in ethics, but she's determined to succeed at anything. At this stage of the film, she's classified as being a 16-year-old, so she's quite headstrong. She marries Ashley's sister's beau in revenge for Ashley's refusal of her advances, and Rhett has witnessed these and, of course, mocked her, which actually precipitated this marriage. Her husband is killed in the Civil War, and from now on, Scarlett is required to wear widow's weeds, which, of course, for a 16-year-old, is not something she particularly wants to do. Scarlett attends a fundraising ball where she is expected as a newly created widow to sit in the background, but Rhett pays a high price to the organisation to allow himself to dance with whichever lady he likes at the ball, and he chooses Scarlett. This is a bit of a scandal at the time, but that's all right because Scarlett absolutely adored the idea. Afterwards, Rhett then courts Scarlett and gives her a gift of a hat in her favourite colour, green. When Ashley returns from the war on furlough, he makes Scarlett promise to care for a pregnant Melanie before he returns to the war front. Scarlett and Melanie together work as nurses caring for wounded soldiers until Melanie's birth is imminent. Once the baby is born, things get quite torrid within Atlanta where they are staying, and Rhett takes them out of that city and then enlists in the Confederate Army himself. Already we begin to see the arguments occurring between Rhett and Scarlett. At Tara, Scarlett takes charge of the household and the farming because her mother has died and her father shows himself to be incompetent. As the war nears its end, Scarlett kills a marauding Union soldier, and between herself and Melanie, they discover that soldier was carrying a good deal of money, and so therefore some of their problems for feeding themselves have been alleviated. Eventually, a weakened Ashley returns from the war, and Melanie rushes to greet him. Scarlett wants to do so too, but Mammy holds her back and makes her realise that this is not her place to greet the returning soldier. The war now being over, many people have profited from it, including the overseer of Tara, who now offers to purchase Tara, but that results in Tara's father becoming enraged, chasing them, falling off his horse, and he dies. Scarlett is bereft. She ends up stripping the curtains from the home and creates a dress so that she can visit Rhett in jail to ask for money, but she is rebuffed. In revenge, she marries Frank Kennedy, her sister's beau, and sets up a successful lumber business. Rhett and Scarlett continue to meet on occasion, exchanging barbs, and Scarlett is attacked by a group of army deserters, which triggers a political meeting of the local people. Late that night, Rhett brings a wounded Ashley back and cons the Union captain to avoid their arrest, but unfortunately, Scarlett's husband Frank has been killed. So now Scarlett is a widow for the second time. She agrees to marry Rhett for his money, and they enjoy a wonderful honeymoon, but eventually Scarlett convinces Rhett that she really needs to return home. Back in the area, Rhett restores Tara and also buys a mansion in Atlanta for them to live in. Scarlett gives birth to Bonnie, who is Rhett's pride and joy, as he really wanted a daughter, not a son. Rhett works hard to elevate the family's social position, having some success in the process. But Scarlett continues to visit Ashley and is seen by other people in the town embracing him, and that, of course, causes a great deal of gossip. Rhett hears the gossip and forces Scarlett to attend Ashley's society party, leaving her there in a provocative red gown to face the group alone. Afterwards, they quarrel and Rhett sexually assaults Scarlett, but she wakes up happy and discovers that she is in love with him. Rhett, nevertheless, wounded by the scandal, takes Bonnie away and eventually, because Bonnie is missing home, returns to a pregnant Scarlett. After yet another quarrel, Scarlett falls down a staircase and loses the baby. While she's recuperating, Bonnie is killed by falling off her pony, and that destroys any chance of a nascent reconciliation between Scarlett and Rhett. In his grief, he refuses to allow Bonnie to be buried, but Melanie is asked to intercede and does so successfully, but then collapses, and after asking Scarlett to look after Ashley for her, dies of puerperal fever. Rhett witnesses Scarlett and Ashley in an embrace, but Ashley rebuffs her, although Rhett doesn't see that aspect of it. Scarlett returns to Rhett, but he's already packing and leaving. And the final statement that he makes to her, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn," has entered the vernacular and has been used many times after this film to indicate total disdain for someone. Scarlett collapses and then determines to make a new start at Tara, and there we end the film. So let's now get into the colour analysis. Scarlett wears a certain number of colours, and I'm going to present them in the order in which they are worn. The first colour is white. As a 16-year-old, Scarlett is seen in a white frilly dress entertaining the local male gentry. She's also seen later on in her underwear, along with lots of the other young women who are expected to rest in the middle of the day, probably because of the heat, but certainly it was not considered appropriate for young ladies to be seen walking around in the heat of the afternoon. The next time she wears white is in her wedding dress to her first husband. Here we can see despair and sadness on her face, as this is not the wedding that she wanted, and certainly not to the husband that she wanted. Then we again see her later on, after she has married Rhett, in a white dress on her honeymoon. She wears white nightgown when she refuses to go to Ashley's party towards the end of the film, but Rhett insists that she does so. And after the rapey scene, she again, wearing the same white nightgown, has a sense of satisfaction and joy. So what does white tell us about Scarlett's journey so far? Each of these indications is one of emotional highs, whether those are emotions are friendly, happy, or sad, doesn't matter. They are extremes of emotion. The second colour, and the one that Scarlett herself claims to be her favourite, is the colour green. Here she's seen in a picnic dress that is basically white with a lot of green embroidery and green ribbons, along with a hat with a large green ribbon attached to it. From her first proposal from Mr. Hamilton, she continues to wear that green dress, but you can see that she's not really happy about the proposal. When Rhett gives her a gift of a green hat after the widow's dance, she also is not terribly impressed with what he's also offering her. She makes a green dress out of the curtains from Tara's halls and wears them to try and obtain money from Rhett. She's also wearing a green gown on her honeymoon to Rhett. And eventually, when they plan to restore Tara, we're back to a white dress with a great deal of green embroidery and other aspects of it that are also green. So green here is associated with every time that Scarlett is scheming in one way or another to achieve her own goals. And then we have Scarlett in black. Firstly, as the widow Hamilton. She's young, she's impressionable, and very unlikely to want to remain in those widow's weeds. She wears a black dress and headscarf to the charity ball, where she dances with Rhett, and also as she and Melanie read the war news, wanting to know whether or not Ashley is still alive. As the widow Kennedy, she's taken to drink, but nevertheless is still relegated to black. In that same outfit, she accepts Rhett's proposal. At least she won't have to wear black anymore. And then finally, when Ashley rejects her for all time and she realizes that she really wasn't in love with him, just the idea of him, she's also wearing a black outfit. So black here indicates a restriction and a lack of choices available to her. And then we have blue. As a successful businesswoman, she is wearing a blue outfit. Her honeymoon bedclothes also are in blue. It's a much paler blue, but nevertheless, it does tend to indicate that she has attained something of value. The portrait in the drawing room where Rhett and Mammy are celebrating the birth of Bonnie shows Scarlett in a brilliant blue gown. The trim of bows and sleeves in blue, along with Melanie also wearing blue, shows the two of them waiting for the post-political meeting. And when she attempts yet another seduction of Ashley, she's again wearing blue. And this time it causes a scandal in the town. In each case, the blue is presenting an image of peace and contentment, and so therefore the ultimate in femininity as espoused at the time. Scarlett spends a lot of time in red as well, but there are different variations of that red. In her white virginal dress, she's also wearing a red belt and red ribbons. The skirt that she wears when she first confronts Ashley in an attempt to prevent him from marrying Melanie is also red. She doesn't want him to go to war, but nevertheless he has determined he will do so. Then there is the red shawl that she wears when she is planning what can she do after her father has died. She wears a red dress while she's manipulating Ashley and Melanie to do as she wants them to do once he's returned home from furlough. As she counts her money after her second marriage and successful business enterprise, she's again wearing a red dress. And the final red dress, the most iconic of all, is the dress of shame that she wears to Ashley's birthday party. In each case, red refers to a refusal to submit and also the ability to overcome challenges head held high, regardless of how deep she's fallen into the pit of despair. Now, the next colour is actually a combination. A lot of the red that Scarlett wears in this film is faded to an almost pink, but also with overtones of brown. So I've put the two colours together. So it's a pink brown. The hospital work dress she wears to tend to wounded soldiers is just one of those colours. As she nurses Melanie as she's giving birth to her son, she's also wearing one of those faded pink-brown dresses. Escaping from Atlanta with Rhett's help, Melanie and the baby in the back of the dray shows her wearing that same dress. Then, when she's defending Tara, we can see that that dress is even in a worse situation. In this dress, she kills the marauding soldier. Then she puts on a brown-pink dress and a brown shawl to try and seduce Ashley once again when he comes home after the war's end. She's wearing that same dress as she pulls down the curtains in Tara. And as a businesswoman, a successful one at that, she's wearing a similar colour but a far more formal dress. And finally, she has the same colours but this time striped with white as Rhett restores their reputation amongst the townsfolk. So this pink-brown coloration tends to suggest that she is working to achieve goals, whether they are her own goals or whether those goals belong to someone else. And finally, we come to one other colour. And again, this is a combination of yellow and orange. She wears that necklace that is more orange than yellow, but nevertheless a combination of the two colours at the time that Ashley first rejects her. She's wearing yellow gloves and a yellow hatband when she stubbornly rides off into danger and is eventually attacked by marauding deserters from the army. While she's not actually wearing these colours, they make a major impact on the scene where she finally accepts Rhett's proposal of marriage. Her honeymoon bed jacket, as she realises that she is now quite wealthy, is also that same yellowy orange. And the bedding in the post-rape scene is also of the same colour. When she tells Rhett that she's pregnant for a second time and they quarrel over the parenting of that child, she is wearing a similar coloured gown and trips, falls down the stairs, and of course loses that baby. And as she's bedridden after that fall, again that same orange yellow puts in an appearance. The yellow orange tends to suggest that she's facing and succumbing to reality, regardless of how pleasant or unpleasant that reality may be. Which brings us now to a summary of the colours. For white, there are emotional highs. They can be pleasant, they can be painful. When she's in green, she is dissatisfied and scheming at her best. Black indicates an enforced restriction. Blue is an imagined, idealized femininity that she does not wear all that well. Nevertheless, it does look good on her. With red, she's showing determination to resist any form of restriction. Thick brown indicates that she is goal-oriented and doing hard work. And orange-yellow shows that there is an inescapable reality that is striking that she cannot get out of. And that's it for the colour analysis of Gone with the Wind. But I'd like to add an epilogue. The University of Texas displayed the restored dresses worn by Scarlett O'Hara in the Harry Ransom Center from September the 9th, 2014 to January the 4th, 2015. I don't know where those dresses are now, but they certainly took a lot of money to restore. A closer look at each of these dresses is found on a YouTube channel, and I'll put that link below in the description for you, should you want to look at it. If you have a particular film that you would like me to analyse, please leave it in the comments below. I'm always happy to look at somebody else's choice of a film rather than simply look at the ones that I have found fascinating in terms of colour. Until then, may your life be filled with colour.